Hello and good day, everyone. Meteorologist Mark Molnar here for this edition of MeteoMark's Weather. Great to have you here with me. We have Invest 90L out here off the southeast coast. It's actually the center is in the eastern Gulf here, and it's ejecting moisture across Florida here and off the southeast coast. We're going to continue to watch that along with the potential for a surge of tropical waves and tropical disturbances over the next several days to couple weeks that could actually affect parts of the Gulf, the Caribbean, and maybe up the East Coast here. So this is something we're going to have to keep close watch on. Let's get into it. And before we continue, I want to make note, if you haven't watched my Hurricane 2024 outlook for the entire hurricane season and how I think this is going to play out, it's a link in the description down below and at the end of this video. And here's our infrared satellite photo. You can see Invest 90L. Thunderstorms from the eastern Gulf all the way over here into the northern Bahamas, producing tremendous amounts of rain. All right, so we're starting off here with the European model first, and we'll transition over to the GFS momentarily. So the problem here in the short to medium term is all this moisture hanging out with Invest 90L right around the eastern Gulf, all the way to the northern Bahamas and just off the southeast coast here. You can see the perspective. It is an endless train of tropical moisture that continues actually from Central America, even origins in the eastern Pacific, as well as the southern Caribbean here. Now, that's going to continue northward. Now, in time, this system is not going to make much headway. You can see by the 13th, this is heading on into Thursday and into Friday. Look what's happening here. We actually get another tropical wave northeast of Nicaragua here. Lots of beneficial rains here for Central America. You can see all the way down to Costa Rica and Panama as well. But the lion's share of the moisture continues from the Yucatan Peninsula across southern Florida here. You can see heavy rains into the Bahamas, especially the western and northern Bahamas as well. That's going to continue in time. Now, if we take a look way out here in the Atlantic, what do we got going on? Big tropical wave coming off the coast here. One way down south here, right almost in line with Trinidad and Tobago. So something we'll have to keep close watch. You can see where our high pressure system is. Watch how that builds over time. Also, another little area over here in the eastern Pacific I'm not overly impressed with, though. Now, as we continue in time towards the 14th, your TGIF, it looks like this system hasn't moved much. You can see the moisture is all strung out and elongated here off the U.S. East Coast. You can see it kind of makes some headway here, though. So if it's going to develop, it would be later this week into the weekend, into potentially early next week. So that's something we'll have to keep close watch on. However, there are systems behind this one. Look at this one around the Yucatan Peninsula by this weekend, the 15th. All this tropical moisture really hanging out across Central America here. Look at that. So that actually heads westward into the Yucatan Peninsula and the Bay of Campeche here. Look at that head northward here, northwestward. There could be a surge of tropical moisture early next week right into Louisiana, eastern Texas, and Mississippi. Could this be some sort of tropical system trying to develop as well? That is potentially something we're going to keep close watch on, because look at this. As we head towards the 17th into the 18th, we see this surge of moisture here associated with a low that is trying to close off down here by the Bay of Campeche. So that is something that bears watching as we go out here in time, but that is not the only game in town. And I want to make note of something as well going on up here. Big old Bermuda High that's reminiscent of late August and September, and another high here in the U.S. East Coast. That is going to steer, look at this. This is a big tropical wave pretty far north for this time of year, just northeast of Puerto Rico, heading just north of Guadalupe here as well. And the intertropical convergence zone really coming far to the north here. But you also see that we got deep tropical moisture here across the southern Caribbean and some crossing over from the eastern Pacific as well. So is this going to target the southern plains as we go out here in time? This is the 18th into the 19th. Look at here. So we actually could have something try to develop here into the western Gulf along the east coast of Mexico. It is really far out at this time, but it's something we'll have to keep close watch. And the models, the medium range models out here were really correct when we're going to see a surge of tropical waves. Look at that moisture surge here across much of the Atlantic. And look at this monster wave coming off of the Cape Verde, just south of the Cape Verde Islands by this time. If you make note of something here, this is kind of disturbing. We have a very large, several high pressure systems here that are going to help steer these systems, instead of becoming fish storms, more towards the west. All right, so our GFS here is showing very prominently here, South Florida just getting pummeled with this Invest 90L. That continues towards the northeast. Now, the GFS really starting to ramp up this system over the Yucatan much quicker than the European did. This is actually by Thursday. So you can see that area of low pressure with tremendous heavy rain here across the Yucatan. Definitely 100 to 125 millimeters of rain here, 4 to as much as 6 inches. And look at that as we head towards the 17th into the 18th. Look at that surge of tropical moisture. It's lining up perfectly with the European model, trying to close off an area of low pressure here in the Bay of Campeche here. We'll see if that actually happens. Nevertheless, right on the outer periphery of this high pressure, there could be a tremendous amount of tropical moisture surging towards Texas and Louisiana here. And look at that. That actually follows all the way up into the Ohio Valley. Kind of curious there. And then another tropical wave here across parts of the southern Caribbean. It's kind of missing Jamaica and the Cayman Islands here for the moment. But you see here across the eastern Pacific, lots of moisture down through Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala. And I want to bring your attention all the way out here into the Atlantic. These tropical waves this time of year, they're pretty strong. I'm going to say, just throw that out there, because this time of year, you don't normally see systems like this already. And we're starting to see that kind of development. And as we head towards the 20th here, there is that wave across the southern Caribbean. This is one we really have to watch closely, as well as towards the Bahamas. And then this wave across the western part of the Gulf continues to cause problems. Tremendous amounts of heavy rain as we head through the 20th, 21st. And look at this. Could this be a tropical storm trying to form here? This is right around the 21st, the evening of the 21st. It's quite possible. Conditions do become a lot more favorable in this region because there's virtually no wind shear. You see the high pressure is virtually building westward here all the way towards the northwestern Caribbean here in the southern Gulf. And as we continue in time, look at this. You can't trust this at being 264 hours out. But the GFS is showing a hurricane in the central Gulf of Mexico during this time. Another big tropical wave out here northeast of Puerto Rico. And then if we go further out here into the Atlantic, the intertropical convergence zone continues to heat up. And as we take a look at the last couple frames here, I'll leave you with this one as we go with more tropical analysis here. Look at this. Yeah. GFS might actually, it's too early to say for sure, but GFS is honing in that, that third week of June has been this trend of seeing the big uptick in these tropical waves. And with that high pressure building westward and wind shear slackening and those extremely high sea surface temperatures, not to say a hurricane could develop in this exact location, but it's very favorable going into the third week of June here. So please stay tuned, especially if you have any plans or you live along the Gulf Coast and Southeast Coast. And sea surface temperature analysis out here, your eyes kind of are drawn to this area. That's the Saharan dust out here. That's going to continue to play a role. It's kind of putting a dent in some of those really bathwater temperatures that are more up here just north of the MDR. But look at the Gulf. That's what I'm really concerned about. The Caribbean here, off the U.S. East Coast, we're still continuing to warm out here. I do expect this to eventually fill back in as the dust usually starts to dissipate come later on into June, especially mid to late July. So showing off our European model here, thanks to Tropical Tidbits, our mid-layer dry air. You can see all that dry air across the southeast and into the western Gulf. Now, there's our tropical moisture surging across parts of South Florida. That's going to continue as we head through Thursday, Friday, and into Saturday. You see that connection really showing up nicely here from Central America all the way across South Florida, potentially giving way to a low-pressure system. Could this actually be our first tropical system? It's possible. But there are systems behind this that do bear watching as well, other than just Invest 90L here. You can see that surge of tropical moisture behind it. Florida gets a little bit of a drying trend as we head through early next week, the 17th into the 18th. But look at this. We're going to see surging tropical moisture all the way from Central America, the West Gulf Coast, and eventually all the way into Eastern North America here. All right, so let's take a look weekly here. There's that Eastern Gulf, a southeast coast anomaly here. Really heavy on the precipitation as we head into next week through mid-June here. Look at how this overtakes the Western Gulf, North Central Gulf, the Caribbean Islands here. Here's our intertropical convergence zone slowly coming north here towards the islands. This basically puts us right at the last week of June into early July here. And look at how that just continues here across the Caribbean Islands. Deeply concerned for the Northeast Caribbean Islands here from the island of Hispaniola, Puerto Rico, the Lesser Antilles. You can see Central America getting dumped on here as well as the Western Gulf. But a curious little thing here in the Eastern Gulf, a little bit dry. Now as we head into early to mid-July, around that second week, things really start to come together. You can see the surge of tropical moisture continuing as we head through the end of July here. If we take a look at our CANCIPS model here, as we look into, let me just back this up to June. Here is what the CANCIPS is showing here for the rest of June. A massive bullseye right over the Central Caribbean Islands here as we head into July. All bets are off. This model has been showing consistently a massive surge of tropical wave action heading towards the Gulf, the Caribbean, and North America. And as we head into August, that blossoms up the U.S. East Coast as well. Central America, you needed the rain. Well, here it comes. Into September, October, and into November, we still could be dealing with named storms, even as far south as the Caribbean. So as we look at rainfall amounts here across Central America and the Western Caribbean, you can see as we go through Friday here, Jamaica, for the most part, is dry. We're picking up a few showers here into parts of the Cayman Islands. It's Central America, especially the Yucatan. We're going to pick up closer to that 100 millimeters, right around 4.5 inches of rain here. You can see up towards Florida, too, that continues to blossom here. And then in the northern Bahamas as well, we got a rain shadow here from Jamaica to the Cayman Islands, anywhere from about 30 to 60 millimeters on average, about an inch to an inch and a half. And as we head to the Eastern Caribbean here and Southeastern Bahamas, it's actually going to be dry through the rest of the week until we get to about the weekend, especially the Lesser Antilles, Puerto Rico. Look at here into the southeastern Bahamas. The Turks and Caicos really dry for the next several days until we get to about the end of next week. Look how we start to fill this moisture in as these tropical waves kind of surge further north, and also including the southeastern Bahamas. Anywhere from 35 to as much as 75 millimeters of rainfall here. We're getting into about an inch and a half to as much as 2.5 inches of rain. All right, so the big story here as we continue in time, yes, we're watching some severe potential here across parts of north central Texas. That's going to be diving to the southeast here. What just happened? Let's see here. This thing's very sensitive. There it is. So yeah, it starts off in north central Texas and then it kind of dissipates overnight here. Now, one thing to note here, we'll have some clouds and precipitation here across the eastern lakes, but watch this across Florida and the Bahamas. This is what we're going to be dealing with 2 p.m. on Wednesday afternoon. Those storms just continue, and they start to fire all the way up the Florida Peninsula here, something we need to watch very closely because we're going to continue to have some very heavy rains, and especially from central and south Florida here into the Bahamas, we could be looking at rainfall totals by the time of early next week, 6 inches to as much as a foot in many locations. And that's associated with our Invest 90L, which the center in the Eastern Gulf is going to slowly transpire towards this potential area of development as we head towards the weekend. Now, as we go up here into the lakes and into the Northeast and the Ohio Valley, this is that feature as we head towards, say, the 13th into the 14th. We could have some stronger thunderstorms firing near Wisconsin. This system will be weakening, though, as we head towards Thursday here, the 13th. So you can see some organization here, scattered showers and thunderstorms, but I'm not expecting anything tremendously severe out of this, but you might see those areas that do get rainfall, maybe a quarter up to a third of an inch. So picking up where our HRRR left off, you can see that big old high pressure here across the east. That's going to promote that warming trend. As I said before, it is Florida that is going to be the main issue over the next several days. I'm going to go over those rainfall amounts momentarily, but some could be quite tremendous here. Now, as we go throughout the rest of the week, you can see that system finally starts to move away. You'll actually get a little bit of a break here, and that moisture surge will shift towards the western Gulf at this point, all the way up here into the Midwest. So we're going to have to watch for a tropical connection here. As we go out here in time, you can see conditions really becoming right here across Texas and the southern plains for some deep tropical moisture by early next week. So that just continues north and westward here. And we could have some severe weather outbreaks here across parts of the Midwest as well. So watch out for that. Our next system moving through the Appalachians here. But let me just back this up. You can see we're almost getting like a ring of fire developing here, because we actually, if I just back this up all the way to here it is. So I want to get to these Great Lakes systems here. The 13th, you can see we have a light system moving through the Northeast and the Ohio Valley here. Cleveland area, Buffalo, Cincinnati, Syracuse, and that moves east for Friday. We might have some showers and thunder showers here across parts of the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. That moves out very quickly and combines forces with our potential tropical low. You can see setting up for a very nice weekend, and all of these big disturbances riding up north of this big old high pressure system. It's like the ring of fire developing here. Liquid equivalent precipitation amounts here for your next. Let's take us through the weekend first. You can see, let's just stop it right there on Saturday. There it is. We'll have a system moving through later Thursday into early Friday here from the Ohio Valley to parts of the Mid-Atlantic, New England. Nothing more than, say, a quarter inch on average here. The big story is going to be across Texas here, and especially Florida. Look at this. This is where I think you'll see 6, maybe some areas as much as a foot of rain. And as we continue to go out into next week, watch that blossom as we head towards the southern plains, especially Texas, especially coastal areas here. This is where you could see 4 to 8 inches along coastal Texas here, and more severe weather outbreaks here across parts of the Midwest. So I wanted to show you the GFS here. Rainfall totals very similar here into the tropics. GFS goes out a bit further here through the end of June. I wanted to make note of how the Gulf of Mexico is going to be opening up as far as precipitation. This is going to be a regular occurrence, especially as we head towards August and September. So our upper air weather pattern here, we're showing on the European model, storminess continuing across the lakes into the Northeast, but that kind of pulls out here for the weekend, blossoming a ridge of high pressure that's going to become a massive heat ridge. This is going to soar temperatures well into the 90s. And just how long could that be actually lasting as we head into next week? That heat ridge all the way into Friday the 21st and Saturday the 22nd. It does start to break down, but look how quickly that fills back in until around the 27th. We start to see evidence that the pattern could be breaking down here across parts of the east. All right, so for Canada here, I'm using the European model this time. Let's take a look and see what we got going on as we head through the rest of the week, Wednesday into Thursday. Look what's pushing here to the north. This is going to be our popular storm track, dragging a cold front here through Ontario and Quebec. Also some scattered showers across parts of the northwest provinces of Canada. Now, as we continue to go out here in time, you can see storminess continuing here. Our next low pressure reloading here across southern Ontario and Quebec for the weekend. Friday. This is later Friday. High pressure building in behind it across the central plains of Canada. That's spreading eastward towards later in the weekend. So really eking out a really nice weekend here. Late weekend, I should say, from eastern Ontario to Quebec over to New Brunswick. Nova Scotia still getting hit up here with Newfoundland here as well with those showers moving to the northeast. But look at our next system here across the Great Plains. We are watching that move all the way up into Hudson Bay once again. So would not be surprised if we get some severe thunderstorms here, southern Saskatchewan and Manitoba provinces here. We're going to have to watch out for that possibility. And as we go out here in time, you can see towards the 18th, 19th into the 20th, the common theme is to have these storms eject further north with a drying trend here for southeast Canada. Out here in the Canadian Rockies, stormy conditions ensue by the third week of June. And as we take a look at Canada here, your precipitation outlook, we are looking actually a little bit drier here into southeastern Canada as we head through the next week. More storminess out there on the Canadian west coast. It's not until we get to about the third week of June here we start to see that weather pattern keeping most of the heaviest precipitation here into the northern part of the provinces here of Canada towards Hudson Bay and southeastward. So if we go out here to the Western Pacific, I actually don't have a whole lot to talk about here other than monsoon moisture. There is a lot of tropical wave action starting to develop out here through mid-June here. You see right around the 13th into the 14th. Of course, we have our massive monsoon tropical plume here across Southeast Asia, especially Vietnam, Thailand, and southern China here. Japan's going to get on the act of it as well as we head towards the 15th. But look at this. We actually don't have anything really to talk about here into the short to medium term. All of these are synoptic systems bottled up from Shanghai all the way over to Tokyo here. And that brings us to this last frame right around the 21st. You can see lots of intertropical convergence zone action, but nothing in particular that really catches the eye, at least in the short term here. I got plenty more weather for you in just a moment, but take a look at my affiliate. Do you want some awesome maps? Check this out.
I am proud to announce that I am now an affiliate with Trilogy Maps. TrilogyMaps.com, bringing you the most digital, customizable maps found nowhere else on the internet. These maps are simply stunning. It's an advanced layering system that makes these maps great for making forecast maps with ease or any other maps that you would like to display important information on. The resolution on these maps is simply amazing. From the detail of everything here in the States, and you can also create stunning, digital, professional layered maps from also across the entire world. And don't forget, in checkout, the discount code option, use my code, MeteoMark, hit apply, and you will get 20% off your order. So if you want the most professional, customizable, and affordable weather maps found nowhere else on the internet, look no further than TrilogyMaps.com. Link in the description down below along with your discount code.
So if we take a look at high temperatures as we head into your Wednesday, that heat is going to be soaring across the plains and central states, spreading eastward. You can see already mid-80s here into parts of the Ohio Valley, 70s holding on into the northeast as we head into Thursday. That surge of heat all the way close to Ohio here, getting close, some areas near 90, as well as southeastern Pennsylvania, 90s all the way up here into parts of the Carolinas. And as we continue through the rest of the week, you can see on Friday, yeah, this is quite a bit of a warming trend. Most areas are above 80 at this point. And look at this, as we head into the weekend, we get a little bit of a cooling trend here across the lakes. Mid to upper 70s, that's actually going to be really nice. But look at what starts next week. This is going to be the start of that Bermuda High heat dome that really begins to build in. Look at these 90s. Many of these areas mid to upper 90s. And as we head into Monday, look at this. Mid to upper 90s in parts of the eastern Great Lakes and mid 90s here across the mid-Atlantic. Extended forecast for my hometown viewers, Binghamton to Scranton, Susquehanna River Valley of New York and Pennsylvania. Look at this. This is a very dry weather pattern. The only chance of storms we have are Thursday night into early Friday, just very scattered in nature, nothing really that major, maybe up to a tenth to a quarter inch, where you do get those heavier downpours. But watch this warming trend, mid-70s to mid-80s on Thursday. We cool it down a little bit for later Friday into Saturday, especially Saturday mid-70s, but watch that warming trend. It will be getting into the 90s by next week. As always, thank you for joining me for this edition of MeteoMark's Weather. Also, don't forget to join me on Facebook at MeteoMark, also Weather Northeastern, also Twitter at Weather Eastern. Don't forget, it's MeteoMark.com. And don't forget, if you want to send me a coffee, there is a link, Super Thanks. You can smash that Super Thanks button or my PayPal link in the description down below. You can buy me a cup of coffee. Thanks, everyone. Share that video. Subscribe if you haven't. Smash that like button.